So Ableton's warp modes are pretty renowned as being one of its most powerful features. So this video that you've just clicked on, we're going to dive into what they are, how to use them, throw in some examples for good measure. So let's jump in. So traditionally, when you slow down the speed of playback, let's say you've got a tape machine, you decrease the speed knob, and that's the speed at which the tape's reading the audio or feeding it through. What we're doing is we're lengthening the actual audio clip itself, and we're also decreasing the pitch. So this is just a natural concept of how music and audio manipulation works. Pitch and time or length of an audio clip are just linked. If you decrease the pitch of something, you're just going to increase the length of it. If you shorten the length of something, you're going to increase the pitch of it. So as an example, I've got this breakbeat here. If I double click on this and go into the clip view, so my warp mode is turned off, and as I decrease the pitch, you can see it get longer, and as I increase the pitch, it's going to get shorter. So you can hear this now, like high pitch. And this is the same reason why in slow motion, we have those really low pitched sounds. So if I turn on warp now, this drop down menu is all the different types of warp modes that you can choose from. And if I choose re-pitch mode, then this is going to be doing the exact same thing. You can see the pitch fader is actually grayed out now. Because re-pitch mode, we're emphasizing the length of the clip. We want to use re-pitch when we don't really care about what type of pitch it ends up being. So pitch is less important. That's why it's grayed out here. And with re-pitch turned on, I can go over to the edge of the clip and hold shift and actually just warp from the edge. So I can just drag this and have it snap onto my grid here, 2 bars long. And now it's going to be a nice loop. So let's have a listen to this. So if you don't mind changing the pitch of your sample, then this is the perfect warp mode for you because it's going to retain the audio quality and it's not going to be degraded as much as some of the other warp modes. So the other benefit of using re-pitch mode is I can make some warp markers here and sort of just drag the things around. So let's say something like this. You can see the pitch is going to change throughout the actual loop. So let's have a listen to this. So you can make some cool sort of effects here. Lots of experimental possibilities with that. If you're liking these kind of workflow tips and videos, you should definitely check out our Ableton Workflow Bible. It's free, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Pretty much just a bunch of cool workflow tips you might enjoy, so I'll leave a link in the description for that one. So now time stretching comes in. We have 2 main uses for time stretching. If we want to stretch audio without actually pitching it up and down, or if we want to just change the pitch of something without actually making it longer or shorter, then time stretching solves either of those problems. So this begs the question, how do you change the length of the clip without affecting the pitch? Because pitch is linked to the actual playback of the clip. So how this is achieved is with a whole bunch of different algorithms and techniques. So for instance, if I was to zoom into this clip here, I'm just going to make a slice at this transient here. And just drag that back somewhere. And what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to highlight the section before that transient. I'm going to duplicate it. And then I can extend this. And we've just extended the length of this audio clip without affecting the pitch. This is essentially what we're doing with warping. Another thing that I could do is make another cut before that transient here. And I'm going to drag this back, duplicate this section again. And what I'm going to do is actually reverse this clip in here. So now these boundaries are going to sound quite seamless because it's being reversed and then it's being played back and we're extending the length of the clip without changing the pitch. So let's just have a listen to this real quick with that little reverse in there. So let's have a listen to this. So besides the fact that it's obviously throwing off the rhythm, the actual reversed clip in here is pretty discreet in my opinion. And by doing this, we're extending the length of the clip without actually changing the pitch. And that's exactly what this Beats algorithm is doing here. So Beats is a warping algorithm that preserves specific rhythmic divisions. So we have this set to transients right now. So when I hit warp, it analyzes the loop and it comes out with all these gray little arrows here. And those are the transients that it's detected. So that's saying that it's preserving all of the transients. It's not going to warp the transients, but it's just going to warp the space in between the transients to get this longer loop when we stretch it out. And this drop down menu is how it achieves that warping. So in this case, it's repeating the little segments between the transients backwards and forwards. This one is just going to be looping over like this, and this one is just going to simply stop, and then there's going to be a gap to the next transient. So if I warp this out really long, you'll be able to easily hear that sort of backwards and forth rhythmic pulsing that it's going to be doing. And you can see that every single one of those transients has been preserved as well. So remember, the same thing happens when we change the pitch, because we're maintaining the length of the audio clip. And then we can also choose to preserve different rhythmic divisions in here as well. So I'm going to try and run through the rest of these pretty quickly because it's more important to know what to use them on, and you'll learn this via experimenting. So it's a rule of thumb to know which one to use. You can hover your mouse over this box here, and you can see in the info view on the left, you can see that there's a little bit of a description for what each warp mode is best at. It says over there that tones is best for audio with a clear pitch structure. So what this warp mode is doing essentially is just splitting up the audio clip into a whole bunch of tiny little grains, little audio snippets. We can control the grain size over here, and then it's just going to loop those grains over to make it longer. So let's have a listen to this. That's just the regular break there. You can hear that we're getting those little grains looped over. You can make the grain size bigger or smaller. And so that's essentially what it's doing, but it does a pretty good job of preserving the actual tone of things. So if you really like this particular tone, you want to maintain that, then perhaps this might be the best warp mode for you. So I got this vocal here.
Tell me something that I long to hear.
I'm just going to try out that tones algorithm on this one. Maybe let's pitch it around.
Tell me something.
Tell me something that I long to hear. Tell me something that I long to hear.
I think the actual sort of wavering it has with the grain size actually sounds quite nice with this vocal. It sounds a little bit like a natural vibrato. So we also have texture here. Let's just experiment around with this one.
Something that I long to hear. Tell me something that I long to hear.
It's sort of similar to tones in its algorithm. I don't know exactly what it's doing, but it's splitting it up into lots of little parts. And then the flux slider here is just adding a little bit of randomness to those grains.
Tell me something that I long to hear.
So it says in the warp mode that it's good for complex, polyphonic, or noisy sounds, but I generally like to use this warp mode to just stretch and make some really weird artifacts and sort of mangle my sounds. So it's generally really useful for me for more that sound design type warping effect. And then Complex and Complex Pro, what they're doing is they're splitting up the audio into lots of tiny little divisions, and the general gist is if you split it up into divisions small enough and then warp each one of those divisions, then it will sound natural. So we can use this for more complex style sounds. So let's have a listen to Complex Pro on this vocal here. And I'm just going to start warping it out a little bit.
Tell me something that I long to hear.
That's actually done a really good job of warping this slow without actually introducing too many artifacts into the sound.
Tell me something that.
You'll hear the artifacts start to come in once I go a little bit more.
Tell me something that. Tell me something that I.
Even still pretty good there. And just all the way to the maximum. You can hear that sort of metallic shimmer in the background is just due to it being split into so many tiny little fragments, right? So over to Complex Pro now, and this really shines with vocals when you want to retain the actual textural characteristics of the voice. Let's say you want to pitch it up, but you don't want it to sound like chipmunk style. Complex Pro is probably going to be the right one for you. So let's just have a look at Complex mode when I pitch up this vocal here.
Tell me something that I long to hear.
So you can hear that it's changed the characteristics of the actual vocal tone. But if I go into Complex Pro now,
Tell me something that I long to hear. Tell me something that I long to hear.
it's retained the formants here. So if I drag down this slider,
Tell me something that I long to hear. Tell me something that I long to hear. Tell me something that I long to hear.
you can see that it's retained the actual characteristics of the vocal now. So Complex Pro is mostly going to be used in this context, but you can also just experiment around as well. The envelope here just says that it increases the spatial characteristics of this. So it doesn't really give too much away of what it actually does, but again, just a sort of experimental thing. See if one thing sounds better than the other. I find that when you bring it up, it starts to introduce this sort of noisy characteristic to the tone. So bringing it up too much is probably not what you want to do. So just try and find a little even medium in the middle.
Tell me something that I long to hear.
So you can see why Ableton's warp modes are so powerful. There's just a lot that you can do with the 6 different modes that they give you. If you have any questions, suggestions, or you just want to say hi, leave them in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.